Alright guys, Coming here again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, interesting roster development last night. It seems Kremp has locked in a contract somewhere for the upcoming season. The top teams we think have sorted their rosters. Could they have made a last minute change and brought Kremp in instead? He had an up and down year on Cloud 9 last time around. Is that where he's going to return? Or is one of these other teams, especially a new organisation that might be coming into the league, going to get his services instead? Very much enjoyed your thoughts on the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Some interesting things going on yesterday. This is one. Best free agent for Black Ops 7 because there are still so many free agents on the market right now. This is aBeZy slamming the desk, doing what he does best, get him back in the league, baby, back in the league. Mamba. So, OMiT, they're a team that could potentially get signed as a full quartet. There is a rumour still that Surge might well be interested in doing that. There was a rumour a while ago that Rocker were going to be the option. So, Mamba, Craze, who potentially could even be a team of two somewhere. There was talk about that a little while ago. Some even said, could FaZe go and get them? I think FaZe, what they've done, what we think they're doing is pretty sensible. Is it really going to be a blockbuster move? That's a question, with Drazah and Simp staying, and then 04 and Abuzah, we think, coming into that team. And Mamba, Craze were with Vivid and Mac. That was the quartet that won the Challengers World Championship. They dominated at the end of the season, at least on the Challenger side. Knocked FaZe, of course, famously out of the Esports World Cup as well. So they became particularly notable. It would be interesting to see an entire team like that picked up. Parasite gave that thought. That's been his opinion for a couple of years, that more teams should do that. It's effectively what Los Angeles Guerrillas did as well. There was the rumor that they were going to get that like Gunless and the Seam roster. Then they brought in Vio's head coach, and he selected to go down a different route, bringing in, turned out to be Estriel, right? And those guys, Flames, that eventually came along for the ride as well. And they, given the potential, or let's say given the expectations, had pretty good success that season. So there is still some argument as to whether the full OMiT team could be an option. But Mamba was in some drama yesterday. Thankfully all's okay. But his brother came out on Twitter and said, hey OMiT, he was out playing with the guys in Columbus, or it was at Columbus Airport. We haven't heard from him since yesterday. His location last shows at Columbus 11 hours ago. No call, no show at LAX. Trying to get some answers from both LAX and Columbus about, the flight information, all this type of stuff, like what's going on. And he then says, what I'm hearing, he didn't play for OMiT this weekend, but if we can get in contact with whoever sent him out there so we can at least get flight info. We aren't sure if he lost his phone, if it got stolen or whatever. We're trying not to think the worst. So scary times for his family for sure. But it was okay, right? His mother eventually says, look, here he is. He did turn up at the airport, and it turned out he lost his phone. Thought it was pretty cool. He turned up here with the EWC jacket on, of course. Got it playing out there in Riyadh. So he looks pretty chill about it, but all is well in the end. And his Mamba says, okay, yeah, phone was stolen, apparently, and missed his flight. So pretty wild, but at least he's all good. And that potential team could still be an option, right? The rumor was that Surge were looking at getting the full OMiT team, but that was an idea of one of the coaches that they were considering, but there are other coaches who have different ideas. There's probably a coach that would like to get some of those Halo guys, but right now we're not sure if that's totally possible because, as Hex made clear, certainly Bound and Renegade are still bound under contract, of which they can't necessarily do all that much about. Now, Ghosty is still appearing as a member for the LA Thieves. He's still got the 100 Thieves kind of affiliate thing going on here. We expect that to change in the near future. Of these top rosters that are making changes, the only one to really confirm anything so far is FaZe. They've confirmed that aBeZy is gone, they've confirmed Cellium is gone. The Thieves haven't yet confirmed exactly what that looks like for them, but we've known for some time that Ghosty's probably going to be on his way out. We think Gentlemates is the likely destination there, but he says back at his home setup, thanks to OpTic for letting me stream there for a couple of days, and some entertaining streams at that. But the other big moment, certainly in Rostermania, was this. So Kremp last night comes onto the timeline and says contract is official. Now look, this could be anything. The usual caveats apply, that he could have signed, I don't know, a contract with the local McDonald's to work for a couple of months there before returning to the league. There's all sorts of possibilities. But more than likely, Kremp's going to stay in the league. He's been a top player. Okay, maybe top player's a bit of a stretch, but he's certainly been up there for the last couple of seasons. We'll see his Lion Man cards in a second. They're not exactly spectacular, but I think people would say that Kremp on that Thieves team last season that had lots of success towards the ends was pretty damn good. This year turned up on the Cloud9 team and was, maybe their best player for a time this season, right? Now, Cloud9 were pretty bad this season in general. Attach was not having a great time. He eventually retired. Sib started out the year in a very lackluster manner as well. Mac came back in, did pretty good things, then they got rid of him. They brought in Capsidal, they brought in Spart, they made those changes at the end of the season, and I think Kremp at times took a little bit of the limelight there. So, as you can tell, he's still appearing as part of Cloud9, but as we know, we think the contracts there were pretty much over, guys were certainly available from that team. This was one of the interesting rumours around Sib, because there were rumours, and I believe legitimate rumours, that Falcons were looking to get Sib before the World Cup even happens, and they, I think, were willing to pay a buyout to make that happen. Now, they didn't do that in the end. Either whatever number they offered, Cloud9 rejected, which, I don't know, these organizations just love to do this. Surge did it. I'm thinking Cloud9 did it as well, but I'm not really sure what the story is there. But I'm pretty sure Falcons wanted Sid before the World Cup, right? They wanted to make that change to try and give themselves a better chance. C9 either denied it or it didn't happen for whatever reason, and now they could have got Sib, of course, Falcons, but now they're not going to do it because Sib's going to go, we think, to Gentlemates instead, and his contract might just be over anyway, so we can go for free. So, I don't know, these organizations confuse me. I'm pretty sure, I might just be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that Cloud9 could have got some money for Sib for literally one tournament of the World Cup, and now they're getting no money for him. So, I guess it was worth it, right? You did well at the World Cup with Sib, congratulations. And now Falcons are getting Cellium anyway, so it doesn't necessarily matter for them. But Kremp has signed a contract, we think, somewhere to either return to a team or go to a different roster. This is how Rostermania, we think, currently looks with some of the teams. Look, Heretics, there is that rumour around Snoopy. We don't know if there's any sort of validity to that really at all, but it's something possible. I don't think Kremp's going to Heretics. I don't think he's going to OpTic. Thieves, FaZe, Falcons, we think we know. Surge, we don't really know, but of course that is the rumour potentially as the full OMiT team as we discussed. So where else could Kremp be considered? Probably not Toronto. They're going to need an AR, right? Like they've got Real, JoeDeceives and CleanX. It's going to be Insight or Nastie, I would imagine, as the final piece over there. Boston, I don't know what they're going to do. It still could be Snoopy and Purge. So in terms of, they're looking for ARs, really. They're probably not looking for a Kremp. Ravens, they probably won't even exist next year. We don't know for sure, but right now there is a rumour that they're going to be replaced by Space Station Gaming that are going to come in and take over that spot. They are probably going to be interested in a couple of the Halo guys, I would imagine. Gentlemates, we think we know as well. So really, there's only a couple of teams that make sense here for Kremp. There's either maybe G2. We think they're keeping Estriel and building from there. Could be interesting, but I think it's more likely that probably Cloud9 have just re-signed him and he's going to stay as part of that team because, look, often organizations, they need some sort of player to build around. But if you're Cloud9, what player would you build around? Would it be Kremp or would it be Gwyn potentially? Because they got Gwyn off Ravens at the end of the season. So could they potentially say, okay, Gwyn's going to be the man that we're looking to go from here with? Or could it be Kremp? Look, I don't know what Cloud9 are exactly going to cook up, but we'll see, because you look at these other rosters being formed. Last year, the Cloud9 team, they presumably put quite a bit of money and resources into that to get basically no results at all. Kremp's Major 2 card this year was pretty good when it wants to load. You know, CDL Major 2 had an 87 overall. Some of the other cards not so pretty. His overall season card this year was an 83, so it wasn't bad. But look at the record, right? Like Cloud9 this year, compared to their expectations anyway, they would have expected to at least make it to champs, right? But they didn't really come close. So they've got to contemplate what they do from here. I think Kremp is a perfectly acceptable option to keep building around, but I think that Cloud9 will have to some extent anyway, change their philosophy as an organization, because I just can't see, if they try and do what they did last year again, it's probably going to yield similar results. And it's not like they're in a position to attract the top talent. The top talent are going elsewhere. So I think for many of these organizations, it might be sensible to really have a think about some of the Halo players, whether you could acquire any of those guys. Take a bit of a risk because, you know, what are you going to do if you're Cloud9? Do you try and get some of the Rocker guys from last season and say, you know what, Kremp and Nero, we're going to run that duo back that had some decent times, I guess, together on Boston? You know, what about Geo? You know, there's some talented players there, but you're going to need some sort of piece to put it all together. So we'll see if Kremp indeed is going back to Cloud9. 9. I think it makes sense for them to try and build around it, but it would be interesting to see where Gwyn ends up as well, because right now there's no discussion there. As I say, we also have no idea what Ravens are doing. Yeah, Slash is still technically part of that team, but I think in the relatively near future, that may well change. So retreat to your thoughts in the comments below. And just before we finish, highest earning COD players of all time by tournament prize winning. So of course, there's inflation here in multiple regards. Some players in the early days won a lot of championships and didn't win all that much money. Nowadays, there's not just inflation full stop, but also just prize earnings inflation in general, that the CDL has become bigger over the last few years. Although that's not totally true in the sense that, and we'll see an example of this in a second when it comes to the actual organizations, the prize pools over the last couple of years has actually now started to decline. The biggest prize pools were in 2020, 2021, 2022, really. Over the last couple of years, it's not quite been as substantial, but the top 3 are familiar to us all. aBeZy, Simp, and Cell. aBeZy becoming the first ever player to eclipse the $2 million prize earnings. I think for some time, aBeZy was actually the top earner because of his career before he joins United and then FaZe. And then, of course, since then, he's fallen down the list a little bit, but, you know, still not bad. Kremp 6 with 1.42 million, despite, 38 tournament wins. Scump is now pushed down to number 9, because Kenny has, made a bit more money over the last couple of seasons or so. Envoy is now in 10th. There's also a couple of other players that have made more than $1 million. So Dashy is 11th on this list, just behind Envoy, 1.17 million. Then Huke, then Drazah, then Slasher. So, still not bad careers for any of these gentlemen, but, it's a long way for Shotzzy to go if he wants to top this list. Not to say that it's impossible, but as I say, the prize money nowadays isn't quite what it used to be. I thought this was amazing if this is actually fully true. TGU Swag put this together and calculated OpTic's earnings and FaZe's earnings over the last 4 seasons since Vanguard. And if you add them all up, the numbers come out to be, incredibly enough, identical. So it is kind of interesting that despite the fact that FaZe won 0 world titles during these games, they did win the World Cup last year and that was a decent payday, but in Vanguard, they came second a ton and made over $1 million. They made more in Vanguard coming second all year than they did in Modern Warfare 3, where they actually won an event and they won the World Cup at the end of the year as well. So, I don't know, I thought that was pretty interesting anyway. OpTic, though, made a pretty big comeback, and it was this year in Black Ops 6 that did the bulk of that comeback, of course. But even winning 2 World Championships the last 2 consecutive years and the World Cup, OpTic still only matched FaZe, which does go to show that the prize money over the last couple of years has gone down, even in terms of majors and stuff. The prize money this year was like 375. The last couple of years it's been like 500, and it used to be more a couple of years ago as well. So like, it doesn't really matter for us fans watching from home, but as far as the players are concerned, I know that Scrap, I think, talked about it and said, maybe it was Dashy, I forget exactly, but there was a certain player who was looking at the prize money and saying, damn, they're lowering the prize pools, not even telling us, right? But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Where's the worst play in professional Call of Duty history? For me, it's the play from Black Ops 3 when Karma sent Pac-Man into retirement. He did.
He gets his kill, he gets kinetic, he's 200 off a lightning. This is just comedy right now, though. Karma versus Pac-Man. I couldn't ask for 2 better people to be in the scenario, and
Karma's throwing his controller at the wall.
It's gonna happen.
5 seconds.
It's gonna happen.
Karma's throwing his controller at the wall.
3, 2, 1. Peekaboo. Oh no!
What?
There's never been a bigger fail. There has never been. End it. Shut up the stream.
End it.
Shut up the stream.
End it.
Shut it up. Shut it up.
Game.
This can't.
Wait, what? Wait, this actually turned... Bro. What? This actually turned into, like... I feel like... No, I definitely seen this, but I didn't know that put him into retirement. Like, did that actually put him into retirement?